Hi everyone, so this is my cooking demo for the Belizean stewed chicken. Before the actual cooking, we would need to marinate the meat, preferably overnight. You can marinate it for a couple of hours and have it sit, and you can use it right after you want, but it's preferred to be overnight so the flavor can get into the meat. And these are the ingredients I prepared. The 4 to 5 pounds of chicken. I got chicken leg and cut it up into decent sized chunks because it'll be stewing for a long time, so it'll be fine. 10 cloves of chopped garlic, 1 tablespoon of dry thyme. You can use fresh thyme as well. I just have dry thyme. 1 tablespoon of chicken bouillon, 4 tablespoons of coconut oil, and 2 tablespoons of ricotta paste. The coconut oil here, at least, usually comes in a more paste form because it's hardened, so you need to melt that for the marinade. The ricotta paste usually comes in a paste as well, so I use warm water to dilute it so it can be mixed with the chicken. Now that we went over all the ingredients, it's time to mix them in. I'm putting in the oil first, then the chicken bouillon, then in goes the dry thyme, to sprinkle it all over. Now the garlic. I usually like to put in the ricotta paste mixture last. As I said earlier, for the marinade you kind of have to make it into a liquid consistency so it can mix well with the meat, but normally it comes in a hard paste, which I'll show you later. With that, we just give it a good mix. I can't do it on camera because I only have one hand, but this is the finished mixing marinated chicken, and I am gonna have it set overnight.
The next day.
So the ingredients I have laid out here are the ones that we're going to be using when we're cooking. The chicken that's been marinating overnight, an onion, a bell pepper, a cilantro bunch. The white stuff is unmelted coconut oil and brown sugar. And we have chicken broth. So let's get started. I have at home around a 12 to 13 inch size wok. It has pretty high walls, so I'm going to be able to do everything in one of them. I don't have to transfer it, but if you don't, you can sear your meat in a frying pan and then transfer it over to a soup pot to stew it. So the first thing you need to do is turn your stove on medium to high, and then just throw in your coconut oil. Because it's a paste form, it needs to be melted. And it melts quite fast. Give it a little stir and to get it all over so it can coat as much surface area as possible because we have quite a bit of chicken. So once the coconut oil melts completely, we can put in our brown sugar. Just give it a stir, spread it evenly across the surface area as well. What we're trying to do here is when we put in the chicken to sear, the sugar should caramelize onto its surface as well. This will give it a brown golden color at the same time, give it a bit of sweetness as So now you can just leave the chicken to sear for a couple of minutes on one side to have it become golden brown, and flip it to the other side to sear it as well. We're trying to trap all the flavor in the chicken before we move on to the stewing process. Here we have the chicken that's been seared on both sides for a couple of minutes. I do see some pink, but that's okay because we're going to be stewing it for an hour or so later. You can sear it longer if you want a more well done flavor and maybe a darker color. Just don't burn the chicken. So the next thing that we're going to do is add the chicken broth. What you want to do here is add enough chicken broth so it covers most of the chicken, so it can be stewed. If you are searing your meat on a separate pan, I would add a little bit onto that pan and keep the stove on to deglaze the bottom of it to get all the flavor that's stuck on the bottom of the pan before before moving it over to the soup pot or whatever you're going to use to stew it with. So the next thing we want to do is add in our chopped bell pepper and onion. We want these flavors to infuse as the dish stews. So currently the flavor and the color of the dish comes from the spices and the ricotta that we use during the marinade, but in most cases we want to add a little bit more for a deeper flavor. And this is the ricotta paste before I diluted it with water. So the interesting thing about this condiment, it's one of the main condiments used in Belizean cuisine. They not only use it in the stewed chicken, but also to make soups and to stew other meats as well. A lot of their dishes use this condiment specifically. This condiment originated from the Mayans. The tree in which the seeds are harvested from to make this paste actually looks really cool. I'll throw a picture on the top right for you guys to see. So I'm just gonna add this to the stew. We don't have to dilute this with liquid because it's gonna be boiling and mixing it around, so it should be fine. But if you want to, you can dilute it as well. That's up to you. Yeah, so just give all the ingredients a good mix, spread it evenly across each other, and then let the stew come to a boil. After, you can turn the heat down to medium-low, and just let it simmer. So now that it's simmering and everything's set, we can just cover it up and let it stew for about an hour.
1 hour later.
So after stewing for an hour, you can see that the color of the broth and the chicken has darkened. The flavor from the chicken and the ricotta that we added has been released into it. And all we need to do is just add in the cilantro and give it a quick stir to add that flavor to the dish. The last thing you want to do is just give it a taste test to make sure it's salty enough. You can add salt and pepper to match the flavor that you want to achieve. I already taste tested mine and I didn't need to add any salt or pepper. And also, if you wanted to have less liquid, you can boil it a little bit longer with the cover off. But at this point, you can turn off the stove and the residual heat will finish off the dish. And that's basically the Belizean stewed chicken. So I use white rice here to go with my stewed chicken. The traditional way people eat it is with rice and beans, but that's something that you need to make as well, and it takes a bit of time as well. So I'm just using this, and yeah, this is the finished stewed chicken.